Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? What is up, Ramley? Welcome to the Ram Skinny here on the LAFB network. Live, it feels later than it is. It is almost 9 o'clock, but it feels even later. Day 2 just wrapped up. The Rams end up making 2 selections. Felt like they made more, but it was just 2. I guess when we cover multiple teams, it seems like more. But yeah, we'll get all into it. Love to get your guys' thoughts, get your comments. Have a little fun here for 30 or so minutes. But what's up, my man? How you doing?
Doing great. I got to hang out with you all day. It's always fun to have a coworker that's actually in person.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. We don't have to text back and forth saying, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Can you hit that? We're just sitting right next to each other all day. Had some El Pollo Loco. What an evening.
It's a great evening. Yeah. Great evening. I was disappointed to find out I couldn't get any like steak at El Pollo Loco, but it makes sense. I mean,
They do occasionally have other meats on there, but it is the crazy chicken.
Yeah, it is. Going to be chicken. So, yeah, we'll wait till a few more people jump in here. I know it's a long day. We got the Lakers game on,
got the
Kings game on, which we're watching right now. So I know there's a lot of sports going on here in Los Angeles. The Dodgers game actually is on as well.
Oh wow,
yeah. So
big
day in LA sports, but obviously we are here talking all things Rams draft. So. All right, well, before we get into the 2 picks, tight end, they go edge, just your overall summation of how the Rams did on day 2. Do you think they should have traded more picks? Do you like what they did?
You look at that first round trade back, and the big jewel that they got out of it doesn't come to fruition until next year.
Mm-hmm.
So they have 2 picks in the first 90 of the draft.
Yeah.
If you want to go extrapolate that even further in the top, I don't know what their next pick is, but they're going a long time without a draft. And so, without a pick. So it's, it feels so much different than the way it's operated in the past, that, it seems like they've always had multiple thirds that they've been able to, spin into other guys, multiple seconds. So, in terms of the picks themselves, we'll get into that more, but it just, that 2026 is great, but it is not, so far it has not really helped them draft anybody that they actually really need to. Now, we said tight end, absolutely something that is on the docket. Cornerback, they didn't touch. Quarterback, they also didn't touch. They could have gone Shedeur Sanders 106 times or 108 times. People could pick. That's the big story coming out, is nobody's picking him, but for the Rams in general, it just feels a little bit different this time around.
Yeah, it does. I kind of alluded to it. It feels like they've made a bunch of picks, but in reality, they haven't. Just 2. They didn't have a second round going into yesterday. They trade back, acquire that, but they gave up a 3rd rounder to get that 7th plus next year's first, obviously. So they would have had 2 3rd-round picks, as you kind of alluded to. But yeah, today just chalk. To had their 2nd pick that they got at 46 in the trade, and then had their 3rd-round pick in the 90s. And so before we get to the actual selections, we spent a lot of time last night talking about quarterbacks. Like, okay, they got this capital now for next year. Does that signify that they're going to basically, you can't ever play as far ahead, but the thought process being, okay, we have 2 first-round picks next year. We can kind of kick the can on the quarterback conversation, look at that draft class, and, focus on what helps us win today with this draft. That was one side of it. But the other side of it was, well, they could also take that pick in season, trade it for a game-changing player, similar to how they traded for Von Miller in the past, or other guys at the deadline, Jalen Ramsey. And so use that extra first now to fortify this current team now, meaning then maybe they still draft a quarterback in this year's draft. They had the opportunity today to do that. Based on them not doing it, passing on Milroe, passing on Shedeur, passing on, Shuck went right before them, but not doing that, I'm not still going to say unlikely, because like I said, I'm kind of a big Will Howard guy who they could get maybe in the 4th or 5th, but it feels like they definitely don't view it as there's a guy in this draft who we think could be our future. Because again, in my opinion, I haven't had a full conversation with McVay or Snead over this, but typically you're not taking a quarterback in the 4th or 5th round with the idea of this is going to be our future. You can get lucky for sure.
Yeah.
100%. But you're not taking that as like, okay, Like, I don't care what anyone says on in the media afterwards. No coach or GM is like, okay,
that's
our 5th round pick, this is our future, our franchise. Like, you're going to throw a dart and say, this guy could be a definite good backup, push the room, and hey, maybe he'll surprise us. We like the intangibles, but you're not going into that pick saying, this is what we're playing for the future. So I say all that basically saying the fact they passed on anyone today tells me they didn't view their future in this draft. Doesn't mean they still might not take one, but now signs lead to next year, which we'll get to next year.
Yeah. And, heading into this process, Leslie did say that they weren't going to reach for a guy. They weren't going to, trade up. They weren't going to use their pick to select a guy if they feel like he wasn't meeting them at that moment. That said, I will say that there is still one guy left on the board available that they did meet with, which is Kyle McCord.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves a sliver of a chance there. And I think that's the right thing to do. If he falls at the right spots to go, see if he's the dude. You got to get up to the plate a bunch of times to get on base. And sometimes you get a home run.
Yeah.
So I think that still that they met with him, still an option, sliver chance still available.
So their next pick at this point is the 25th pick in the 4th round, which is 127 or so. If we continue, I know we're not going to spend the whole time on this because this is a national topic, not Rams, but if Shedeur Sanders is still available, like why would you not take a flyer on that? Is it, I mean, we had our summation off air, but I'll let you go first. Like, do you think they would do that, or is like the jury that no one wants to touch this guy?
I mean, it's hard to deny what's happening in the NFL right now, which the consensus is that he's not worth any of these 108 picks that have happened so far.
Yeah.
Those teams could be wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe there is something to it. Heading into it, national media had him going, in the top 5.
Yeah. Not to cut you off, I cannot remember a time where the consensus, again, not necessarily the NFL scouts, but the consensus draft experts was top 10. And now here we are going into the 4th round. I've never seen that. We've seen guys, I mean, Geno Smith fell out of the 1st round. Lamar Jackson, you mentioned earlier, last pick in the 1st round. Yeah. But we're talking about like a slide of like 20 to 15 picks, not 100.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really unusual. And I would love to know what these teams don't like, because, there's some good tape, there's some bad tape. I think obvious 2nd rounder, obvious 3rd rounder, but that's just my own. That's just I'm a Rams analyst. I'm not a scout.
Yeah.
I'm not even a national analyst. This, I do this. So I didn't watch a ton of tape on him. And it's just beyond me. It's flummoxing. It's so. I
mean,
it's historic.
Yeah. The only, and we'll move on after this on him, but because I went to Colorado for the USC game last year in Boulder. And then, just being from Colorado, I did watch some Colorado games just to kind of keep tabs, have buddies that went there and whatnot. And obviously they were a national story the last 2 years. And I mean, again, I told you I was never that high on him. I never saw him as a top 10 pick. I thought that was mainly because of his name, but he does some things good. He's not like terrible.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can surmise of this kind of historic fall is, if you watch the CU offense in these 2 years, it's been a pretty terrible offense. Like, their offensive line plays horrible. They have 0 running game. And so some people could look at that and say, well, look at what Shedeur was able to do with the offensive line, with the run game. Others may look at it and say, and I could see this side too, of like, well, he didn't complement that at all. Like, he made it hard on himself with his kind of how he would not stay poised in the pocket, scramble out too much, extend plays, take big sacks. And then the running game, whether it was him checking out of running plays or audibling or whatever, like, I'm not in the huddle or whatnot. So, and then you have Travis Hunter. It's like, well, how much was Travis Hunter just making him look better and whatnot? So I'm not saying this is my necessarily opinion. That's just the only thing I can think of like why this fall would be this big. Because again, I thought Tyler Shuck was kind of a better prospect. We talked about that, but like I'm surprised to see like Dylan Gabriel go ahead of him.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe went ahead of him.
Yeah, Milroe I could even see a little bit just because
there's a lot of high upside.
The upside is there. Like Shedeur was more accomplished in college, is probably more ready now, but Milroe with the size, the speed, the arm strength, like the ceiling is. I mean, that's again we comped him kind of like a Josh Allen ceiling, not the same type of player exactly.
I mean, if you're hiring a guy and he hands you a resume and on it it's just I worked for Dad. I mean, and now I'm venturing out of that, and Dad is the character that he is. You know, maybe that's the red flag. And you know, like, is he coachable? You know, a lot of the, you know, I hate when the stuff comes out where it's like this guy's cocky or uncoachable or, you know, because I mean, all these guys are cocky, but if he's like to that level, like cocky among the cockiest people on earth, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that and I brought that up of, you know, is it a red flag? I don't necessarily maybe think so, but is it a actual question? 100%. Like literally has only played for his dad.
Yeah.
His dad like created a high school for them to play at. Then he goes to Jackson, then goes to obviously Colorado.
Yeah.
So it was only played for it, really. I mean, obviously there's been, I'm sure Pop Warner and stuff, he maybe played for other people, but at this level has only played for his dad. And you know, that there's other players that have had that, but there's only one Deion Sanders. And that dad casts a different shadow, and I don't know. So anyway, enough about Shedeur. It's wild what's going on. Rob Marchion says, no, Sanders, please stay strong. If taking a flyer, Howard, please. That's my guy. He knows I'm a Howard guy.
There we go.
Yeah, I've been saying Howard. Take a flyer on Howard. National champion, big size, good accuracy.
Yeah. You know, looking at the third round before the Rams picked, a lot of our guys came off the board. They weren't even available.
Yeah.
You know, I think I settled on Mason Taylor. It was kind of my call last night. Mason Taylor ends up going at number 42.
You're talking in the second round, yes.
Second round, yeah sorry. 4 picks before. Carson Schwessinger, first pick off the board on day 2, which is just incredible for him. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson both come off the board right before.
So do you remember who my pick was for the Rams?
Was it Terrance Ferguson? No, it was not.
It was Will Johnson, who was still available, who actually still was available, but clearly those medicals concerned a lot of teams.
Yeah, Will Johnson comes off the board right after.
Goes
to the division rival Cardinals.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't bite us in the butt. But anyway, so we haven't even really said it. So Rams, their second round pick, take tight end out of Oregon, Terrance Ferguson. It's growing on me more, especially hearing like, you know, what McVay said and seeing a few more of the highlights and whatnot. I didn't hate it by any means. I think me and you both, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we're big Arroyo guys, and Arroyo was available. Obviously, Mason Taylor went right before, but at the tight ends who are available, I like the upside of Arroyo more. I think Ferguson seems pretty polished, dependable, reliable. Like, you know, he does what he does. He's not going to like wow you in different things. I mean, he really is kind of like Tyler Higbee.
That's exactly what I was going to say when I was reading Dane Brugler's kind of rundown of him. He says he's solid across the board, just solid, and that's what they like. I mean, they've stuck with Tyler Higbee. They've tried to bring in other guys, but never really invested that much. Stuck with Tyler Higbee. The thing that jumps off to me is from Brugler's assessment is nothing screams exceptional. So he's good at everything, but not great at anything. And
it's a jack of all trades, I guess.
Yeah,
a turd of all trades.
So, you know, if you're getting a guy that's going to take over for Higbee, he seems like a carbon copy. He's about the same size.
Yeah.
What is he? 6'5", 247. Higbee's 6'6", 250.
Yeah.
So
from my hometown of Littleton.
Yeah, there we go.
Littleton, Colorado kid, Heritage High School from.
And just 22 years old. Yeah. So that's good.
That's good. So yeah, I think it's it's a fine pick. I don't think it's, I think what's good in the sense, at least again, who knows how much is this saying or not, but the Rams apparently were very high on Ferguson. And there was even a scenario potentially where they would have even taken him in the first round, which, they could just be saying that. But so the fact that I think they really did like the player and he was there, it was like, they put the pick in immediately. It was no question that's what they were doing.
Yeah. An interesting thing he's got going from his Oregon days is he's lining up 42% of his snap in the slot and then 40% in line or as a wing tight end. So there's good versatility there. There's questions about his blocking. I think that's every tight end coming out of college into the pros.
Yeah, especially in the college game now. They just don't like teach tight ends to block like they used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll give them that receiving threat that they don't have when Higbee's been hurt. And then hopefully now with this pick, they can use Colby Parkinson like they intended to when they signed him last year to be the inline blocking tight end. And now with the combination of Higbee and Ferguson, and then as Davis Allen continues to develop, that's kind of their more receiving threat tight end and whatnot. So I think it should pair well together with what they're trying to do in offense.
Yeah, and the thing from Sean McVay and Les Snead's press conference, caught my ear was that Sean McVay said, it's going to open up the offense, which means 12 personnel to me. That's what I hear from that. Is this offense is going to continue to evolve and change from what it was with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and the years past where it was 11 personnel, 11 and a half personnel into more what originally McVay wanted to do, drafting Everett and Higbee back in 2017, which was a 12 personnel heavy kind of scheme. So, he's not entirely sure if that's going to work out with him, but it seems like that's what he was saying. And obviously this is pointing toward that. Cause Higbee's still got question marks about his health, I would say, but looked pretty capable in those games that he did play.
Oh yeah. When he was healthy, it was a huge dimension of the offense that was missing all year, especially with the inconsistency we saw. So whether this is a succession plan for Higbee, who's entering the last year of his deal, or just another piece to complement Higbee if they do decide to extend him or whatnot, at least they have the weaponry to do it potentially. Because remember last year when Higbee was down, and obviously we were already in the season, and we had talked extensively about Parkinson was meant to be a blocker, but they don't have anyone else. They're putting him out there on routes. He's just not meant to do that. And we were talking about other tight ends that had been free agents that they could have signed. And I'm now drawing a blank on the one. He was in Miami. I can't remember, but Miami had a guy. He ended up torching the Rams when he came to LA, being that kind of receiving threat tight end. So they clearly need that. They clearly want that, and it seems like they got that with Ferguson. I still think Arroyo gives a little more upside there, but hey.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you there, and we'll find out. They're going to see him twice this year. He's on the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, so Will Johnson goes the next pick to the Cardinals, and Arroyo goes, 2 picks later to the Seahawks?
2 or 3 picks later, yeah. Teaming up with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else on Old Turd or onto the third round pick?
Well, we're talking about team needs a little bit. The big question is still cornerback, and with Will Johnson, like our guy here, Swing Timer is saying, Will Johnson was there.
Yep.
Now that we're looking at the next pick, all those cornerbacks that everybody really liked going to the Rams were all gone at that point.
Yeah, it went in the second.
Yeah, so I think we can transition to our guy Josiah Stewart now, Michigan edge rusher, which is not a need. Byron Young, you got Jared Verse there. Michael Hoyt leaves, but Michael Hoyt's a different animal. Stewart's an undersized guy, 6'1", 250. So I think they were forced to go best player available at that point, where all the wide receivers also had come off really at that point as well in the third round. So, when we were doing our mock draft and we kind of got through it, and I was looking at it and I was like, I need more draft picks. And they didn't lose any draft picks in that trade, but they lost the 101st pick. And it's still in my head that there should be one more pick here.
I know.
Yeah.
It feels odd, but yeah, I think I like the player. I think Stewart's a good player. Great production at Coastal Carolina and Michigan when he transferred over. He shredded USC when USC went up to Ann Arbor and played Michigan and had like a critical, like brutal sack on Miller Moss. So I think he definitely has that good bendy range, good weight at 250, but you mentioned a little undersized, only 6'1", so a little shorter, which usually that translates to a little shorter arms, but obviously the production and played in a big boy conference in the Big Ten, going against big boy tackles in the Big Ten, and he was able to have good production. So I like the player. I like the value there. Like you said, not a huge need. Now you do need a little bit more depth there. Obviously Byron Young and Jared Verse aren't going to play the entire game. You got to have a rotation there, and you lose Michael Hoyt, as you alluded to Buffalo. So could they have gone other value there potentially? But again, as you're saying, all the corners that were probably positionally wise valuable there were gone. So then they kind of were like, all right, well, let's just go BPA, and that's where Stewart sits. They can certainly utilize him.
Yep.
Yeah, just the way the board fell, it kind of forced their hand away.
Yeah, and I think in the mock draft we were talking about adding strength to strength, and this is that. My big question is: was there a defensive tackle on the board that gives them that Puna forward run stopping for the future? That's something I wanted to see them add. Somebody bigger in the middle. They got a type now. This guy's got that relentless energy, like Fisk, like Verse, Byron Young, similar in that way. Smaller guy. From what I read, he's kind of got that over pursuit, over relentlessness, too much energy. He's got the production, he's got that finishing ability. But from what it sounds like, there is some of that. Jared Verse really struggled with that early on, and you go look at the Eagles tape from that first game they played versus the playoff game. He got so much better as the season progressed at being able to finish quarterbacks in the pocket and take them down for sacks rather than just getting pressure on them. So, but can we get some versatility? Can we get some different kind of pass rushers but they have the type, and it's been working for them, so I can't really hold it against them.
Yeah, definitely. They've had a type for quite some time, I feel like. But
Leonard Floyd was kind of, he was a much more disciplined, but hyper athletic, super slender, long arms.
Yeah, long and rangy.
Yeah.
Which Stewart isn't necessarily. I think Byron Young's a little long and rangy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But just in terms of the motor,
the type of player.
The fighter in him, the dog. Got that dog. So overall, how would you grade day 2 for them? I'm gonna give it a real solid B.
Yeah.
I would have liked to seen a cornerback at some point, add to that room just because of the future at the position. I'm sure they're gonna address it in the 6th round and undrafted free agents, but you got linebackers still waiting out there. Do they go wide receiver? I want to see some more offensive linemen taken. I want to see a defensive lineman, defensive tackle taken for sure. So still areas of concern that they don't seem to be too concerned with at this point.
Yeah. I'll go B-. Overall, like I said, I like both the players. I like the positions. I just think based on how the board was, I would have, what do I know? I'm just sitting here on a couch sipping a tequila watching the Kings game. But I think the availability in that 2nd round, I think there was better value there. And again, we talk all the time, like what really is a reach? Like if he's your guy, he's going to fit. Like who cares when you take him? So I'm not necessarily saying that Ferguson was a reach. I'm just more saying the players that I thought fit what they need were there and they passed on them, being Will Johnson, being Arroyo, being some other ones that were there, a bunch of other corners besides Will Johnson that were there. So that was my only, I guess, again, B-, not crushing him by any means. The 3rd round pick I was more okay with because like we said, it's just based on the way the board was. Like he was the best player, I think, available at that time, and he fits in.
Yeah, you look at the players that were available after, not named Will Johnson. Yeah, UCLA edge rusher, Femi Oladejo. That's a guy. That's a different body type there for sure.
Yep.
Trey Harris, wide receiver, Jack Besh, wide receiver from TCU. That not obviously not a, Trey Amos hanging out there. People were putting him in the first round.
Corner.
Ends up in the back of Shamar Turner, defensive tackle. Definitely some upside there.
Ravel was still around.
Siobhan Ravel.
Yeah.
Demetrius Alexander was he ended up going first pick in the third round. But 6'4", 305 pounds out of Toledo. Like that's a good gap filler right there. I'd say. Meat. Yeah. So, I mean, there were still guys on the board. Isaiah Thomas out of Florida State, cornerback.
Yeah, another one.
Another, I think Jordan Rodriguez mocked him, a couple of times, either in the first round or if they traded back into the second round. Siobhan Ravel, yeah, I mean, there was, I don't want to say that Ferguson was a mistake because it's something that they needed, but there was some talent out there. But maybe it would have been seen as a reach if they had gone for a guy like Darius Alexander. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's going to have their different perception and whatnot. So overall solid. I mean, I definitely think it's overall solid, and the way that they've drafted the last 2 years, obviously got to give them credit for how they operate and do things.
Certainly.
But we shall see. So what do you envision for the final day 3? Don't have to give any names. We're getting in the weeds there that late in the draft, but you would think for sure they'll take a corner.
Yeah.
We're, as we said, kind of at the top. Quarterback now, less likely, but still potentially with guys like Will Howard available. And then what do you think about like running back and receiver?
I think definitely running back. They gotta take a swing at that at some point. Cornerback and offensive line. I think you got to go with you got a fourth, and then there's a big long wait.
Yeah,
we're looking at another wait into the 6th round where they have 4 picks and then 1/7 that they picked up via the trade.
Yeah.
So, that 6th round is going to be that's going to be the money one. They're going to have to find a quality starter there at one of those positions, whether it's running back, linebacker, cornerback. And I bet they go a couple of cornerbacks at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe 4th and 6th.
Yeah. I'm just going to throw one name out there. Woody Marks, running back. I'd love to see him take Woody. Woody Marks, baby. We need a Trojan on the Rams. And hey, shout out Jalen Smith, J-Rock, USC Trojan, got drafted to the Texans, reunite with Kalen Bullock. So a USC player. They continue their streak of at least getting drafted in the first 3 rounds. So they need more in the 1st and 2nd round, though. Like you can see why Ohio State won the Natty when they have like half their team get drafted in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, really impressive draft haul for them.
Yeah. So anything else left to add? Keep it short and sweet tonight.
9 o'clock early morning after a couple of late nights. We should keep it short.
Yeah, 9 a.m. tomorrow. We are back with full coverage on LAFB Network. We got our draft trackers up, so you can get all the info you want, grades there, plus individual articles on each of these prospects. So Skinny's doing a fantastic job.
Go click on some stuff.
Yeah, go help us out. So if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe to this channel, Rams LAFB. That helps us out. LAFB Network is all of us on social, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. He is RL Anderson, LAFB. I am Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. And like I said, LAFBnetwork.com is where you can find everything. Let's see if the Lakers close out. What we got?
We got 2 minutes left in the Lakers game. They're down by 7 points.
Ooh, that's not
That's
good.
A close one. We got the Kings up in the early parts of the 3rd period, up a goal on Edmonton.
They were down 2-0. Came back to take a 3-2 lead.
Wow.
And now it's 4-3. So these Kings are looking good. But someone out there named Drake is sweating, but feeling pretty good right now because he bet $620,000 on the Timberwolves to win this game against the Lakers.
He not like us.
He not like us. I wouldn't even bet $60 on that. I don't have that.
I'm not a betting man. Pittsburgh Pirates beating the Dodgers. These Dodgers are taking it nice and easy getting into the season.
Dodgers are really, I mean, they've been snake bitten with injuries, but still, it's a good roster. And they got swept by the Cubs.
Yuck.
Yeah, they're just very up and down. So we'll see what, they'll get it together. It's a long season.
That's for sure.
But all right. Well, for Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyrud. Thank you, Ramley. Thanks as always for hanging out, supporting, and reading all of our stuff. And we'll talk to everyone manana.